Oh, oh God. Oh God, I'm dying. Huh? Oh. Ade Dewey Dembella, give me the power I beg of you! Oh, God. Oh. Yes. Oh, thank God. Yes. Thank God. Dembala. Whoever. Alright. Alright, cool. Alright. Well, that was a close one. Hey guys, it's Nick with Braindead, and in this video we'll be recapping the events of Chucky Season 1, the first show I've ever covered on this channel, so hopefully I don't bomb. So this is usually where I would give a bit of a review on the material I'm covering. However, we got a lot to get through, so I'll just save that for the end. For now, I'll just say that the show is great and you should totally watch it, even if you watch this video first. Because even though I'll interject context here and there wherever I feel it's necessary, I will be skimming and glossing over so much of what makes this show great. You will not get the same experience watching this video as you will that, and I recommend that. As for the timeline aspect, all you really need to know is that the story left off back in 2017 when Tiffany and Chucky in Nika's body drove off from a mental asylum where Andy was trapped. Kyle also showed up at the end to torture one of the Chucky dolls that Andy had in his possession, and now the show takes place in present day, which just means the year it came out, which was 2021. But that's it, so we can go ahead and get into it. Just as soon as I take this off, because it is itchy, it gets into my eyes, I don't like wearing it. Forgive me for not sticking to the bit. You get it, it's Charles Lee Ray when he died in the first movie. Please let me have my comfortability though. I beg of you. Anyway, let's get into it now. The first episode kicks off with Chucky waking up in a garage sale. He's then purchased by our new main character, Jake Wheeler, a 14-year-old boy who likes dolls. Don't judge. Jake is an artiste and is building a sculpture made out of the parts of dolls. Okay, now you can judge. Jake's father, Lucas, sure does.
It's cool, Jake.
Okay, but why'd you say it like that? Later that evening, Lucas's twin brother and family come over for dinner, and it's immediately apparent that they live very different lives. Jake and Lucas are implied to be poor, while Logan, Bree, and Junior are more well-off, preppy types. Not that there's anything wrong with that. It's also very clear his parents put a ton of pressure on Junior to succeed, bragging about how he made regionals for his track and field sport, how he's an Eagle Scout, and how he's gonna need a third extracurricular if he wants to get into Harvard. Anyway, Junior creates a bit of an awkward situation for everyone when he continues to make remarks on Jake's sexuality.
It's the 21st century, it's cool to be gay now.
You're goddamn right it is! Unfortunately, Lucas doesn't agree, smashing a glass in anger and proclaiming, "He's 13, he doesn't know what he is."
14.
Once his family leaves, a drunk and belligerent Lucas loses it and destroys Jake's sculpture. The next day, Jake sees that Chucky is worth a fortune and brings him to school so that his dad won't throw him out. This amuses Junior and his girlfriend, Lexi Cross, who turns out to be a huge bully. Since Jake is poor, when he mentions that he's going to sell Chucky, it gives Lexi the idea to embarrass him by sarcastically creating a GoFundMe for him. She scolds by a teacher, Ms. Fairchild, and told to take the page down, to which she poorly feigns sincerity, claiming she's just trying to help a fellow student.
Poverty's no laughing matter.
You think this is funny?
And when she's threatened with detention, Lexi threatens right back, saying that her parents will sue the school. We find out a little later in the show that Lexi's mother, Michelle, is the mayor of Hackensack, the town the show takes place in, so they're pretty powerful around these parts. Ms. Fairchild then goes to grab the principal so Lexi can repeat her threat to her. Chucky, who Jake asked Miss F to hold on to until he can find a buyer, then starts fucking with Lexi, startling her and blocking the only exit. Lucky for her, though, the teachers get back before anything bad can happen. Freaked out, she says she'll take the page down and leaves. Later that night, Jake seems to have found a buyer for Chucky, who will obviously turn out to be Andy. I mean, come on. Andy ominously telling Jake to check Chucky's batteries when he gets the chance. Cause we all know that's step one when dealing with Chucky's. The next day, it seems Chucky found his way home all by himself, which is just weird enough for Jake to take Andy's advice. After disposing of the doll, Jake goes to the school talent show in support of his crush, Devin Evans, who had previously asked him to come. He's made to regret showing up, though, as Lexi continues her campaign to embarrass him. She tries to get Jake to admit that he's into Devin in front of the whole crowd, but is stopped when we hear a familiar voice.
Why don't you pick on someone your own size?
Chucky makes Jake take him up on stage, where he begins to read Lexi's embarrassing search history under the guise of being a ventriloquist dummy. He caps off his performance with a,
You're all a bunch of fucking assholes.
Let's go.
I'm out of here.
Jake gets suspended for his foul language, which leads to a fight with his dad that turns ugly on account of Jake calling him out for his homophobia. Lucas forces his son to go upstairs to his room and leave Chucky down with him, which we know is a big mistake. As he realizes that someone drank all the rest of his booze, the lights throughout the house turn off. Going down to check the breaker, Lucas doesn't realize that there's a nefarious doll full of conductive material lurking around and some exposed cable on the ground by his feet. Once Lucas gets the power back on, Chucky makes his way over and vomits the booze all over the floor, electrocuting Mr. Wheeler to death. The police arrive on scene, including Detective Kim Evans, Devin's mother, and ask Jake a few questions, mentioning that the school was broken into and only a doll was taken. Jake admits to the B&E to cover for the talking doll, saying he needed to practice his act for the talent show. Just then, Logan comes to pick Jake up since he'll be staying with them now indefinitely.
The bathroom's down the hall. The Wi-Fi password is Eagle Scout.
God, we get it. Your son is so accomplished. You know, I'm an Eagle Scout too. You don't see me throwing myself a goddamn parade. Before getting settled in, Jake has a few words with Charles.
So talk to me, damn it.
But with no fire around to threaten him with, Chucky makes the first move, smacking Jake in the face. The episode ends with Chucky suggesting that they talk about that bitch, Lexi. Episode 2 begins Halloween morning, where at the Wheeler residence, the other Wheeler residence, housekeeper Annie is just doing her job when Chucky takes advantage of the stupid way they put knives in the dishwasher and pushes her onto the blades. When Jake and Junior get home from school, they discover the body, prompting another police investigation that puts further suspicion on Jake.
This is the second freak accident in this town in less than a week, and your nephew is at a ringside seat for both.
Of course, Jake knows who really did it.
I didn't do it.
Convincing. Chucky then criticizes Jake's diary entries, poking fun at how much he writes about Devin. However, to Jake's surprise, Chucky squashes any suspicion of bigotry when he brings up his kid, who just so happens to be gender fluid.
You're cool with it?
I'm not a monster, Jake.
Best line of the franchise. But alas, this is mostly just a ploy to earn Jake's trust, which Chucky will then use to try and convince him to kill someone. namely Lexi. Later that night, there's a Halloween party at fellow student Oliver Hayden's house, Oliver being one of the kids that bullied Jake in the first episode. However, he did later apologize for his actions after the passing of Jake's father, offering his condolences and inviting him to the party. Junior heads over to Oliver's party in an Uber, leaving Jake behind. Not that Jake really wanted to go anyway, as he's still struggling with the idea of possibly killing Lexi, but remaining idle is not really an option anymore, as Chucky seems to have disappeared. It turns out he just wanted in on some candy, donning a Hello Kitty mask and going trick-or-treating. He gets a random woman to give him a hint as to where Oliver's party might be, and in return, he gives her an apple. And there's no plot relevance to this, I just wanted to include it because I think it's funny. Right before Chucky got there, this random woman playfully criticized a group of teenage girls for being a little too old for trick-or-treating, and this line just it really gets me.
When I was your age, I was high as a kite. You have a good time.
At the party, Junior and Lexi get themselves a room and start making out, just as Jake arrives to try and save them from Chucky. He gets locked in a room against his will by a drunk Oliver, so he and Devin can play 7 Minutes in Hell. They're not very good at it. You're supposed to kiss! Speaking of not very good at it, Lexi's getting pretty tired of Junior's lack of moves.
Yeah, your moves are weak.
And as Chucky is trying to stab her, she keeps fucking moving until eventually they get caught and are kicked out of the room. At the same time, Jake and Devin are let out of the closet. Oh, you son of a bitch. And hear people chanting Lexi's name. Unfortunately, it's not the sacrificial ritual type chant, more of an encouragement for a breakdancer type, and we see that Lexi dressed up as Jake's recently deceased dad, acting out the man's death. Which is actually downright disgusting, like borderline inhuman even. But I feel like I wouldn't be doing my job properly if I didn't mention this next part. Upon making eye contact with Jake and seeing how devastated he is, there is a recognizable moment of realization that what she's doing is totally fucked. She continues anyway though, so still, to hell with her. However, despite how much she definitely deserves it, Jake still narrowly saves Lexi from getting knifed. He takes Chucky home, where the evil doll once again tries to manipulate him into thinking he should kill Lexi, the episode ending with a hint that Chucky's words might actually be getting through. Episode 3 picks up right where the last one left off, with Jake asking Chucky how he became a murderer. Chucky then begins the story of his first kill, something he tells over the course of the episode through voiceover, so I'll just tell you all the important bits at the end of this episode's recap. After school that day, Jake somehow was able to bug Lexi's phone or something and follows her while she's going for a jog. He waits for her to stop and take a breath, approaching her with a knife ready for plunging, coming to a halt once he realizes he's got the wrong person. So, a couple things to unpack here. First, Jake was tracking Lexi's phone, however, Junior had it because he was just grabbing it for her. Second, Jake just tried to murder Lexi, straight up. Totally would have gone through with it too if he didn't realize that it was Junior in time, so the show could have been completely different. Completely freaked out by the situation, Junior tells Lexi that she should apologize to Jake, not knowing what he might be capable of. Murder. He was literally about to stab you to death if you were Lexi, so yeah. But of course, she refuses, not wanting to admit that she did anything wrong, because that's what a good person would do. However, her little sister Caroline has seemingly developed a sort of fixation on Chucky after seeing him in the talent show. Mr. and Mrs. Cross suggested earlier that Lexi pull some strings with Jake to get the doll, but she refused then as well, citing how he made fun of her.
It's called bullying. He's a bully.
You serious?
After a temper tantrum from Caroline, Lexi changes her mind and figures that if she apologizes to Jake, he'll let her have the doll. Unsurprisingly, the apology comes off more insulting than anything, and Jake tells her that she cannot have Chucky. After insulting him even more, Jake goes up to his room where he's made a new sculpture resembling Lexi and stabs it to pieces. Chucky then suggesting he be the one to take care of Lexi by giving her what she wants. Him. So, later that day, he stops by Lexi's house and drops Chucky off. Chucky plays doll with Caroline for a while as Lexi's friends pile in for an impromptu silent disco party. Once all the guests have arrived, Chucky and Caroline are tucked into bed while the other kids fucking rave! Silently. Chucky takes this opportunity to skulk around, waiting to get Lexi alone so he can do what needs to be done. While on the prowl, he accidentally stabs Oliver instead, electing to finish him off first, then continue his pursuit of Lexi. A moment presents itself as Lexi smokes some pot alone in her room. Chucky sets a trap and surprises her from behind. Hey, he's doing that little kick thing from Child's Play 3. That's cute. During their scuffle, the joint gets thrown near some flammable curtains, setting the room and eventually the rest of the house on fire, the partiers below too preoccupied to notice. The main part of the episode ends with Chucky approaching his next victim with a knife. However, there is a little bit more to get to before ending this episode's part. So throughout the show, we've been seeing flashbacks to Charles Lee Ray's past when he was just a child, but there wasn't really anything worth mentioning until now. As I said, we have the story of his first kill. During the course of these flashbacks, we continue to hear about how there's a serial killer in the Lee Ray's neighborhood. This comes to a head when that very same killer breaks into their home, murdering Chucky's father. And as Chucky and his mother, Elizabeth, are hiding, the hack-and-sack slasher finds them and finds that Chucky murdered his own mother. Because of course he did. The man behind Chucky, the killer doll, took out his own freaking mother. And not only that, she was his first victim. But no, you know what? Let's not forget...
I'm not a monster, Jake.
No, how could somebody who murdered his own mother at the age of 8 in cold blood be a monster when he's a fucking ally? Yeah, that adds up. You know what? Checks out for me. Anyway, that's how the episode ends. Episode 4 picks up a little after the previous one left off, with Jake arriving at the hospital in the aftermath of the fire. It seems as though everyone we care about made it out alive, including Junior and Devin. Caroline is in the ICU on life support, but at least we're finally rid of that wretched, awful, nasty,
Jake!
lovely young lady. Lexi's all shaken up about the supernaturally possessed doll burning down her house thing and reveals that she didn't see Chucky die, just went and assumed that he did like an idiot.
Then you assume you make an ass out of you and me!
Jake tells her that they need to be sure he's dead or else Lexi won't ever be safe, since he kinda told Chucky to kill her a little bit, maybe. Enraged by this, Lexi goes to tattle on Jake, but we've been through this before and know that she can't tell anyone, lest she end up institutionalized. She tries to tell her parents anyway, but they've had about enough of her shit. They found out from Miss Fairchild during a sit-down with Jake's new legal guardians about what she did at Oliver's party, and now she's trying to blame him for the fire?
Get real.
Lexi then goes back to Jake for help with their murderous marionette situation, and together they head to Lexi's place to make sure that the doll is dead. Meanwhile, the Cross parents then run into the Wheeler parents, starting a conversation that turns into a fight. Not just because of the whole "your daughter dressed as my dead brother for Halloween" thing, but also because Junior's lungs were damaged in the fire and he won't be able to run for a month. A big problem for them, seeing as how nationals are right around the corner. Sorry, I gotta stop doing that. Logan ends up punching Nathan in the face, prompting Detective Evans to intervene and reveal the truth about Oliver's death.
Severe blood loss as a result of multiple stab wounds.
She also revealed this information to Devin, who in turn told Jake before he and Lexi headed out. So now everyone's in the loop. Yay! Devin then looks up stories involving good guy dolls and murder and finds an article about the legend of Charles Lee Ray, giving us a little more backstory for the character. After losing both of his parents, he was put into foster care where he rubbed his evil off on all the kids around him, including none other than Chucky's future partner in crime, Eddie Caputo. At the Cross House, Jake and Lexi slowly make their way around while kinda talking shit to each other about how terrible the other person is.
All of this happened because of you.
You dressed up as my dead dad in front of everyone.
You scratch my CD!
Look, you both kinda fucking suck, alright? Get past it already and find the goddamn doll. They don't, though, and just fight some more until Jake is pushed to his emotional limit and Lexi is pushed over the edge. Just then, Chucky once again makes his entrance, encouraging Jake to drop Lexi so he can finish the job. However, Jake proclaims that he is not a killer, and he pulls Lexi back up just as one of the detectives from earlier shows up. Of course, Chucky goes doll mode, and the kids aren't really able to explain themselves.
We have had a doozy of a day.
A real doozy.
So Detective Peyton brings them all back to the hospital, which is where Detective Evans steps in and grabs Jake to question him before he can go off with Lexi to stop Chucky. She meets up with Devin and goes with him so he can tell her all about the Lakeshore Strangler.
He never really strangled anyone. I mean, he was more of like a mangler or a
Devin?
Lexi ends up spilling the beans about the legend of the killer doll being true, and he's after them. Meanwhile, Detective Peyton finally arrives with the doll, and while he's snacking on all the food brought for this sick young girl, Chucky springs into action, paralyzing the man with a scalpel. He then takes a bunch of dirty needles and stabs them into Peyton over and over again, causing him to bleed out of every orifice, even his fingernails. What? Why so brutal, Chucky? I mean, I know he was eating some food that wasn't his, but come on.
From the minute I first saw you, you know? I couldn't stand your fucking face.
Scary face.
He then pulls the plug on Caroline's life support, sending the whole hospital into a frenzy. Luckily, one of the nurses notices the unplugged machine in time, then finding the dead detective lying in a pool of blood. And while everyone else is preoccupied with that, Chucky ends the episode by flipping off his next targets. We begin episode 5 with another flashback. This time, Chucky is all grown up and hanging out at a nightclub, scouting for more victims. He spots a promiscuous young woman named Delilah, who scares off her current date by getting a little too rough for his liking. That's when Charles steps in to sweet talk her into keeping him company instead. Together, they spot and pick up another random woman, who they call Red, and bring her back to Chucky's hotel room for some, stabby time. Something that Delilah is taken aback by, but Red seems to be super into.
Do it.
This throws Chucky off a bit, and as he hesitates to do it, Delilah asks what the hell he's doing, to which he responds by stabbing Delilah, asking Red if she would like a turn. She does, and seems to orgasm while she finishes Delilah off. Obviously, this turns out to be Tiffany, which is punctuated when the voice of Jennifer Tilly starts coming out when Red talks.
Is that me?
In the present, Caroline wakes up in the hospital and, of course, immediately asks for Chucky. Unfortunately, she knows not for what she wishes and can't stand the sight of the doll now that he's been half Krugered. So, down the garbage chute and into the used needles he goes. Lexi shows up a little later, learning from her father about Chucky's whereabouts. She then grabs the boys to go high-risk dumpster diving. However, after digging around for a bit, they find nothing and assume that he escaped. In school the next day, they discuss what Chucky's next move might be, getting interrupted by Junior, who just feels left out and wants to be a part of the group. Poor guy. The gang decide not to tell Junior about their situation, Lexi stating that he doesn't have the imagination, meaning there's no way he'd believe them. And to interject some context here, at this point in the show, Junior has proven himself not to be just some snotty rich kid. He's actually kind of a good guy, so it's easy to feel for him here. After school, Lexi's family begins settling back into their house, their crispy house, where Michelle grounds her daughter for her hand in the arson. Then, when Nathan suggests she let up a little bit on Lexi, since she's obviously hurting too, she insults her husband to his face. Rude. He then brings Caroline to her new temporary room, where she'll get to sleep on the same sofa bed that her Nana slept on. How cute.
Nana's dead.
Well, now, yeah, but she didn't.
Nathan says he's got a surprise for Caroline, pulling out another good guy doll to her delight. Lexi, on the other hand, isn't too fond of Tommy, and tries to beat the soul out of him, finding it's just a doll. Later that night, however, the real Chucky shows up, seeing he's yet again been replaced by his arch nemesis Tommy. This time, Chucky takes a bit of a different approach when dealing with his more handsome twin, transferring his soul into Tommy's body. Nathan then finds the lifeless burnt doll, goes to throw it out, but is caught by Michelle and Lexi in the process. This causes an argument between the family when Michelle further ridicules Lexi, figuring this was her doing, leading to Nathan telling Michelle to give it a rest in defense of their daughter.
So I'm the bad guy here.
Not realizing the doll body swap took place, Lexi calls Jake and Devin over for a Chucky beatdown. Of course, this is in vain, but they don't know that, so for now, they think they've won. Fools. You're all fools! Anyway, there's a really sweet moment between Jake and Devin as they're talking about getting back to normal. They're finally able to start acting on the feelings they've had for each other and kiss while the sun sets. But we have 14 more minutes of episode left, so we're not done yet. We find Bree by herself in therapy, where she's talking about her big secret that she's been hiding from her family.
Stage 4 cancer.
As she promises to come clean to her loved ones about her horrible illness, we cut to Nika and Tiffany sexing on a dirty bed in that filthy hotel room from the flashback. If you'll remember from the movies, or my video, the last we saw of these two, they were driving off into the night after escaping the mental institution and cult. Catching up with them, it seems like they've been up to no good, as to be expected. After a bit of bickering between the couple, Tiffany storms off, leaving Chucky with the hostage. Nika is then able to take her body back from Charles, collapsing on the floor because Nika is paralyzed, remember? Which I always thought was pretty stupid, until I watched CZ's World's video on the history of Damballa, which, if you haven't checked that out, go do it after this. It's pretty cool. But essentially, the idea is that if a doll possessed by Damballa that has no bones or muscles or anything like that whatsoever, it stands to reason that literally anything possessed by Damballa can move. Least surprising of all, human beings. So, I mean, makes sense to me. Let's move on. Nika tries to help her potential victim, getting walloped in the process. This brings out the serial killer in her, Chucky once again taking over and killing the guy before he can say anything about the split personality thing to Tiffany. Meanwhile, the recent murders have provoked a town meeting at the school where the mayor attempts to save face by offering empty words of compassion.
Then I'm running a little low on compassion at the moment.
And puts a town-wide curfew in place. Detective Evans steps in to calm the crowd, who all booed the mayor off stage, then queuing up the principal to say a few words. The episode ends with a flashback to Chucky transferring his soul into the other doll, which we already knew. On to the next episode. We pick up in another part of the country, where we finally get to see Andy and Kyle together again. They arrive at a house, pretending to be from the Census Bureau, so they can snoop around for Chuckies. The family's young daughter starts dragging out her toys to show the nice federal agents how many she has, so they can count them on the census. Aww. Then Chucky tries to stab her. Andy's on top of it though, shooting Chucky in the head and then many times in the torso with Kyle's help, leaving only the husk of a bloody good guy doll behind. Also something to mention is that this is the same doll that Tiffany gave to Nika back in Cult. You can tell by the burnt hand. Speaking of old friends, Nika, Chucky, and Tiffany begin bickering again when Chucky makes fun of Tiff for having a hard time shoving a body into his suitcase.
Get your leg off my suitcase!
That little blood spurt brings Nika back out as Tiffany storms out in anger. Later, after making up I assume, Nika does her best Chucky impression while her and Tiff play poker, but it turns out she can't bluff for shit.
I stabbed you in the thigh 10 minutes ago. You didn't feel a thing.
Tiffany then confesses that she actually prefers Nika over Chucky and would like her to be in the driver's seat as much as possible. She knocks Nika out, bringing her to their new home, as Tiffany is handed the keys to her new place in Hackensack. Wait a minute, don't I know you?
I was high as a kite. You have a good time?
We find out that the house is Chucky's childhood home. You know, the one with the... yeah. So, this freaks out the realtor as she leaves in a hurry after giving Tiffany a suspiciously good guy-sized box. And as Tiffany settles in, she ties Nika up, duct tapes her mouth shut, and goes out for a night on the town. Or day, I guess. At the same time, Bree comes clean about her cancer diagnosis to Logan and Junior. Obviously, he doesn't take the news too well and tries to lament his feelings to Lexi. Unfortunately, she can't dedicate herself emotionally to him as there's other pressing things going on at the moment. Understandably upset by this, Junior breaks up with Lexi and leaves. Not in a position to go after him, she joins the rest of the gang who were able to find Andy through the power of social media. Ms. Fairchild was arrested for the murder of the principal, Oliver, and Detective Peyton during that school day, and since they're not able to vouch for their teacher with the truth, the gang decided to call up Andy for help. Jake gets a hold of him and gives the stranger his address. He says he's on his way. Meanwhile, Bree takes Junior along to her therapist session just to make him wait in the car. She goes up to tell her therapist that she's not depressed, but is going to refuse treatment. Not out of hopelessness, but out of appreciation for the time she has left. Chucky then tosses her ass out of a window. To make it even worse, she lands on her own car that Junior was currently in. Her death is ultimately labeled a suicide, with Bree's therapist sitting down with the rest of the family to talk about the situation.
You're a fucking therapist. You didn't see any signs?
It's normal to feel angry at times like this.
Sounds like you're deflecting. Coping mechanism that is typical of people who are confronted by their own mistakes. The doctor then tries to say some bullshit about how Bree didn't want her treatment to overtake their lives, even though she knows that Bree didn't even want the treatment, so what the fuck, Mixter? At the Evans residence, Devin finally talks to his mom about his feelings for Jake, and because she's a dope-ass, awesome mom, she assures him that this changes nothing, and she loves him for the way he is. It's so freaking sweet, you guys. Their relationship is so heartwarming. I love it. Later that night, the gang all meet up at Junior's house, since they figure that's likely where he'll go next. They set up a doll trap to trap the doll and lie in wait. It's not too long until the doll begins to move, indicating someone or something is opening one of the doors. They go looking around, finding a smashed vase and some tiny footprints. Eventually, Chucky cuts the power to the place and gets Lexi alone to try to convince her to kill Jake. However, Jake sneaks up on the good guy, but is ratted out by a squeaky floorboard, and Chucky gets away by going under Jake's legs. Doesn't get too far though, and is tased by Devin. But I don't think electricity works super super well on plastic, so Chucky immediately gets back up, running past Devin back downstairs. That's when Devin's mom shows up and gets attacked by Chucky, falling down the stairs and breaking her neck in the process. The episode ends with Chucky escaping once more and Devin falling to his knees, devastated at the sight of his now lifeless mother. Well, I've got some shit to say. First, to explain why Kim was there in the first place, we find out in the next episode that someone had called her up and told her that Devin was at Junior's and he was in trouble. Second, God damn you, Chucky, and God damn you writers for doing this. I didn't even get to a new page in this script since I started boasting about how much I love Kim and Devin's relationship. Look at this shit. You ought to be ashamed. Anyway, the next episode opens on Bree's wake. Come on. Double goddamn you. To everyone's surprise, Jennifer Tilly shows up to offer her condolences and kisses Logan right in front of everyone, including Junior. Later that day, Junior confronts his father about this, and although he truly doesn't know, Logan is weirdly suspicious with his answer.
I don't know, maybe she was a friend of your mother's.
He further incriminates himself by going out for a bit, which to me sounds more like, I'ma go get us a new mommy. Junior then makes his way up to his room, where Chucky is waiting for him. A little later, when Logan arrives home, Chucky and Junior have already made friends till the end, with Chucky again trying to convince one of these teens to kill someone.
My mom is dead.
Your dad can be too.
And since Junior is clearly spiraling, it seems as though the killer doll may actually be getting through to him. All while that's happening, Mayor Cross tells the press that they have a suspect in custody, meaning Miss Fairchild, and that they will be going through with their previously planned charity event of screening Frankenstein. She also says that there's going to be a celebrity guest joining them to host an auction prior to the screening. The meeting comes to an end when one of the reporters asks Caroline a question, and she responds by saying,
Chucky told me to kill Mommy.
Later, and elsewhere, Devin figures he should take matters into his own hands, so he grabs his trusty taser that worked so well last time and goes to Charles Lee Ray's house. Once inside, he hears Nika calling for help, finding her still tied to the chair. As he sets her free, she stands up and introduces himself.
It's Chucky.
Thinking it might be better for everyone if he wasn't around,
I don't want to be around anymore.
Jake packs a bag, steals some money from a passed out Logan, and heads for the bus station. While waiting for his bus, Jake spots a man with a good guy doll and goes after him. He turns out to be a delivery driver, taking the doll to somewhere in Hackensack. Jake pays the guy to give Billy to him and give him the drop-off address.
Tampering with the mail is a federal offense.
He makes sure Billy is docile before ending his expedition and heading back into town. He shows up at Lexi's house with the doll, and together they discover that the delivery guy was taking it to Charles Lee Ray's house, and that Devin is currently at Charles Lee Ray's house, dun dun dun. Meanwhile, Logan wakes up from his nap and drunkenly stumbles up to Junior's room, where he finds his son and the Chucky doll have something planned for him.
This is awful in every way.
Logan tries talking to his son about his mother's death, but the doll does all the talking back, spouting out some generic good guy lines, and a couple I don't think were approved by Play Pals.
You sure drank a lot. Glug, glug, glug.
This sends Logan into a rage, and as he tries to grab the doll from Junior,
Get your fucking hands off me.
Chucky continues to berate Logan about his supposed infidelity, and still thinking that Junior is pulling the strings, Logan tries again to take the doll away, ending up on his ass. He insults Junior by saying Bree killed herself because she was a quitter just like him, which is not only an incredibly fucked up thing to say to your son, but also seems to be the last straw. Junior then uses the Chucky doll to beat his dad to death. The episode ends with Jake Jake and Lexi waiting on their Uber to take them to Charles Lee Ray's house, Devin waking up tied to a chair with an army of good guys watching over him, Junior decidedly losing his mind after killing his dad, and Andy, who left Kyle behind at a gas station, presumably for her own safety, finally showing up to help at Junior's house. The final episode of the first season picks up at Junior's, where Andy comes around looking for Jake. He only finds Junior, who invites him in so he can look around for the good guy doll, Andy mentioning that Jake had one for sale. He eventually leaves, finding nothing, and the moment he steps out, Chucky pops out of the toilet.
I knew he'd never look in here. The guy's got serious issues.
With toilets? Is that part of the Child's Play lore? I don't remember that. Jake and Lexi sit around, discussing why Chucky would want one of them to kill someone so badly, just as the doll from the bus station comes to life and gets shot dead by Kyle. She explains the whole situation to them, including the multiple Chuckies thing, the Nika thing, and the why he wants one of them to kill someone thing.
He can get just one kid to kill someone. He can make an entire army.
Fucking voodoo, man.
Fucking voodoo, man.
That's what I said. She asks them if they've done any murdering recently, and luckily, neither of them have. Not for lack of trying. They bring up Devin and how he probably needs their help right about now, but it seems as though Kyle drugged them, so they can't put themselves in harm's way. Tiffany arrives home, finding Nika on the floor again, but this time 'twas a trick, as Chucky takes her down and is about to kill her when another Chucky comes in with Junior to save the day. They all gather in the next room, where it looks like the whole corruption of innocence thing worked, as all the other good guy dolls are now little Charles Lee Ray's. Nika Chucky and Chucky Chucky sit down for a conversation that gets so deep they ignore Tiffany, making her a little jealous. She scolds them about how self-involved they are, which leads to Nika Chucky getting slapped, turned back into regular Nika, and Chucky ordering Tiffany to kill her. But when she has a hard time doing so, Chucky turns to Junior to step up. Hesitant, he almost seems like he's going to do it, but is stopped short when Tiffany finally snaps, decapitating the doll with her signature nail file. She then really lays into him.
I'm done with your petty shit and your massive ego and your tiny fucking dick.
She also reveals, via more flashbacks, that when her and Charles were together, she caught him killing without her, which I guess is the same thing as cheating to psycho killers, and she was the one who tipped Detective Mike Norris off to his location the night he was killed. Tiffany then drugs up Nika again, and sets up a big ol' suitcase bomb that she apparently got from Glenda, setting it up as a trap for Andy. As they leave, Junior seems to have grabbed one of the dolls, asking Tiff if he can keep him. She says yes, and Chucky couldn't be happier. Look at how happy he is. They drive off while the severed body of the Chucky doll gets back up with intent to kill Devin, but is thwarted when Andy shows up with a baseball bat. He then unties Devin and tells him to go on git while he interrogates the head. Getting nothing, Andy's about to start the torturing when Kyle shows up. Not knowing about the bomb booby trap, she opens the door, setting the whole house ablaze, potentially killing everyone inside. The next morning, Jake and Lexi awake to see the news story about the explosion and assume that Devin was incinerated.
He was incinerated.
Nah, they wouldn't do that. Devin shows up at his place unharmed while Jake is also there mourning.
He was incinerated.
Meanwhile, the mayor is kicking off the Frankenstein charity event, introducing none other than Jennifer Tilly as their special celebrity guest. They reveal that Jennifer will be donating her private collection of vintage good guy dolls to children's hospitals all around the country. Lexi isn't really a fan of Ms. Tilly though, since she's too young to have seen Bound, so she sneaks away to go help out Junior with his doll problem. She follows them to the backstage of the screen screening where she's cornered by the pair. At the same time, Frankenstein begins and Nathan shows up to support the event and his wife. They had been fighting ever since their house burned down and got into a handful of arguments over how poorly Michelle has been treating her family.
Mom or Mayor?
Excuse me?
Choose, because I'm not so sure you can do both anymore.
Chucky crawls under the seats with his stabbing knife, nearly missing Mayor Cross as she goes to get some popcorn, Nathan taking her spot. When she returns, it seems that Nathan has been killed. This sends the entire theater into a panic as the crazed butt stabber goes around doing what he do best. In the ensuing chaos, Michelle gets knocked unconscious as the entire theater is cleared out, except for Caroline, who wants to finish the film. I mean, it's Frankenstein, man, it's a classic. However, Devin and Jake show up, and while Devin takes Caroline to safety, Jake and Chucky have their final showdown. For now. During their fight, Chucky answers a question that many people probably have with this franchise. How could a doll overpower a human? It's just a doll.
Doesn't make any sense!
Well, the answer's pretty simple.
You're nothing against the power of the great almighty Gimbala!
Fucking voodoo, man. As that's all taking place, Junior and other Chucky try to convince Lexi to join the dark side and be killers just like them. But she's had her character arc and is good now, which is not what Chucky wants to hear. And as he threatens to kill Lexi if Junior doesn't, Junior lunges at the doll, stabbing him in the chest and killing him. Unfortunately, this victory is somewhat hollow, as Junior is revealed to have also been stabbed in the scuffle. Dying in Lexi's arms, Junior asks her to let everyone know that he's sorry. Back to Jake, he gets the upper hand on Chucky, eventually pinning him up against a wall by the neck. They argue about the murder of Jake's father, Jake lamenting that he was relieved at first, but then realized that Lucas could have changed if only given the opportunity.
If you only got the chance to meet Devin.
Oh, that is so gay.
When you say that's so gay, do you realize what you say? Knock it off.
Hilary Duff is right, so Jake strangles the doll until his eyes literally pop out of his head. Thanks, Hilary Duff. As everyone regroups outside to tally up who's left, the truck full of possessed good guy dolls is being prepped by Tiffany. But her plans are hindered by Andy, who survived the explosion.
He was incinerated.
He gives the teens a thumbs up, and Tiff the bird, as he steals the truck to dispose of it. He also sabotaged her car, so she can't follow him either. The first season of Chucky ends with doll Tiffany popping up from the back of the truck, holding Andy at gunpoint and telling him to continue driving, the gang paying their respects to their fallen friends and family as a black-gloved stranger watches them from afar, and Nika, having been captured and taken back to that disgusting hotel room again, discovering that Tiffany has amputated her arms and legs. Why are you doing this? Don Mancini, the writers, whoever. Why you gotta do Nika like that? You're monsters, all of you. She's already been through so much. Thanks for watching this recap, everybody. Please subscribe and or like this video if you enjoyed it, if you made it this far. I'll probably do The Exorcist next. Actually, yeah, see, right here, got it. 4K. That is actually a brand new release, and I got it on my birthday, so I'm very happy about that. Anyway, obviously I won't be able to get Chucky Season 2 recap out in time for the new season, so instead what I'm going to do before Season 3 kicks off is I'm going to host a watch-along, and that's going to be happening on Sunday, October the 1st. I will host it live right here on this channel, so you can join in at any point in time. And if you're not aware, the way it's going to work is you will need your own copy of the season. For me, I have it on Blu-ray right there, so I'll just be watching it right from my computer. But I will not be showing it on screen because that's illegal and I like not being in jail. So if you haven't used up your free 7 days for the sci-fi streaming channel that I assume exists, now might be the time for that. So anyway, as you can probably see from the length of this video, there's still a little bit to go over. I will say that the recap portion is done, so if you're only here for that, you can leave. It's totally fine. Appreciate you being here. Bye, I'll see you next time. Thanks for hanging out. But for everyone else who's sticking around, I just want to talk about some behind the scenes type things and give some of my thoughts and personal feelings about the show and really the franchise as a whole. Starting with the gay themes, I guess, for lack of a better term. I'm going off script here, by the way. And for those who might not know, Don Mancini, the brainchild of Chucky Child's Play since its beginning, is a gay man, and he's been an open and out gay man for way longer than it was socially acceptable to be open about being gay. And also, full disclosure, I myself am very gay. I'm technically bisexual, but it's like 80-20 in favor of the homo, so, you know, whatever. The point is that I can say from personal experience that the way being a gay 14-year-old is portrayed in the show, it's very accurate. I personally was fortunate enough to be in more of like Devin's position than Jake's. Unfortunately, there are kids in Jake's position, which I don't like. Why is that's still a thing anymore? Like, that doesn't even make any fucking sense. Get over it. You know, like like Papa Meat said in part of my video, it's not a big fucking deal. But anyway, I'm getting sidetracked again. The point that I'm trying to make is I was going through more of what Devin went through in the show, and it was very accurate in that even though his mother, his family was super kind, really didn't show any signs of being a bad, neglectful, or abusive parent in any way, shape, or form, he was still afraid to tell his mom. He said that he was afraid that she would look at him differently, treat him differently, or something like that. And I can tell you, that is very fucking real. That's exactly how it is. But you know, might sound a little weird to some people. It's like, oh, your mom loves you so much, like, why wouldn't you be able to come out? Because it's still kind of fucking scary. I don't know what to tell you. It's not really an easy thing to just come out and say it, you know? It should be. It really should be, but it's not. At least it wasn't for me. It wasn't for Devin in the show. It's very common that is still a fear, as irrational as it may seem. Anyway, I'm just glad that this show exists and can show kids like Devin, kids like me when I was their age, that you can be accepted, you will be accepted by the right people. You just either have to find the right people or try to change other people's minds through kindness and love and positivity, not negativity and hatred and all that stuff, which is such a hippie thing to say, I know, but it's true, man. I don't know what to tell you. Which is actually a pretty decent segue into the next thing I wanted to talk about, which was like the theme of people changing and acceptance and stuff like that. Where I know I made a lot of jokes at the beginning about how horrible Lexi was as a human being, how much she really deserved to die and all that kind of stuff. But the thing is, by the end of the show, she had pretty much redeemed herself, and the thing that made her more sympathetic was Jake showing her kindness and saving her life when he didn't need to. And again, many people probably did think that she deserved to die and should have been dropped and killed by Chucky, and that would have been the good ending. That would have been the good thing that happens. But the fact of the matter is, by the end of the show, she literally refers to Jake as family to her. She changed as a person for the better when she was shown kindness that she damn well knows she didn't really deserve. And that's also basically what the conversation between Jake and Chucky was at the end there. They were arguing about how Lucas could have changed if given the opportunity. The opportunity that was given to Lexi, and she changed, right? So it's obviously possible unless you take that opportunity away from them by, in this case, killing them. It's not a happy ending for anyone. You might feel that way in the moment, and unfortunately, that's normal, but it's not right. And that's not to say you have to be naive and give everybody every opportunity ever. I mean, if somebody's being shitty to you and is toxic for you in your life, sometimes you gotta just cut those people out, and that is what is best. Of course, this depends on your situation and whatever this person who wronged you did, but the theme here still stands, right? Like, the whole point is that people cannot change if you don't give them the opportunity. If you just take that away from them, then what hope is there? Which is just an overall positive message. It's good to see in a show like this, and I know so many people probably won't understand that. They'll probably still wish that Lexi died. I'm so angry. Well, you didn't get the point of the show, then I'm sorry to tell you. The last thing I want to touch on here is way less important than those other two. It's the filmmaking, the animatronics and stuff like that. Wait, can I say filmmaking? Is that accurate? It's a TV show. I mean, you still point the camera for video stuff to entertain people, right? It's filmmaking. Whatever. The filmmaking of the show is always good. The whole franchise, I've always appreciated the animatronics. Just really any way they bring Chucky to life in these in this whole franchise is always so much fun to me. Like, for example, you can easily tell when it's a small child, and it's always just like, aw, you know, that's sweet, that's cool, like, it's fine. It doesn't really take me out of it or anything. It just makes me smile and go, that's so cool. And actually, there's a good moment from the show that I just remembered. There is this part where all of the Charles Lee Ray possessed dolls, this is towards the end, and like the main Chucky's like talking to him and pumping him up or whatever, and there's just like lines and lines of dolls, and the first row of dolls were like actual animatronics moving around, moving their heads, smiling or whatever, and then like every row behind it, they were just stationary, just regular old dolls, Chucky dolls, which I thought was so funny because they're all supposed to be alive, but you can easily tell that nothing past that first row was a real animatronic or doll, or realistic in really any way. And I didn't notice that the first time I had watched the show. I had only noticed it in writing the script for this one, and I just, again, I couldn't help but smile and go, oh, that's so cool. I love that kind of stuff. I love seeing that kind of stuff, and it just makes me so happy. But yeah, anyway, that's all I got. I don't have anything more to talk about. If you made it this far, genuinely, thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. I recorded something special for you guys that'll come up in just a moment here, I guess, at the end of the video, so you could have skipped the entire thing just to get to it, you cheater. But no, I got another channel. If you want more of me, I do gaming live streams over there, so come say hi if you're feeling so inclined. Otherwise, that is all I got for you for now, so thank you so much for hanging out, and I will see you guys again real soon. You know, there is something that I actually want to try real quick with this on. You hear this, you son of a bitch? I'm gonna get you for it! I'm gonna get you, and I'm gonna get Eddie. No matter what!